The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said that the continent of Africa and the people everywhere need action to respond to deadly climate extremes. Secretary General Guterres made the statement at the Africa Climate Summit currently on the way in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Africa Climate Summit 2023 focuses on the theme driving green growth and climate financing solutions for Africa and the world. Yahya Jammeh has more details of that in this report.
While Africa's per capita emissions are significantly lower than the global average, the continent is disproportionately affected by rising global temperatures and escalating climate consequences. Drought, desertification, and cyclones, among others, are some of the leading causes of food shortage, displacement, and migration. To avert such, Mr. Guterres said Africa and the world at large need actions to prevent such disasters caused by climate change.
People of Africa and people everywhere need action to respond to deadly climate extremes. An injustice burns at the heart of the climate crisis, and its flame is scorching hopes and possibilities here in Africa. This continent accounts for less than 4% of global emissions, yet it suffers some of the worst effects of rising global temperatures.
The Secretary General also made a strong appeal for large emitters, namely the G20 countries, to strengthen efforts in the fight against climate change.
I make a very strong appeal to the large emitters, to the G20 countries responsible for 80% of the emissions that will be meeting this week in Delhi. Assume your responsibilities. Developed countries must commit to reaching net zero emissions as close as possible to 2040, and large emerging economies as close as possible to 2050, with support from developed countries to do so.
The Africa Climate Week 2023 welcomes policymakers, practitioners, business and civil society representatives from the 4th to the 8th September 2023 in Nairobi, in parallel to the Africa Climate Summit on the 4th to the 6th September, both hosted by the government of Kenya. As the world grapples with the urgent challenges posed by climate change, the Africa Climate Summit will address these pressing crises through cooperation and forward-thinking initiatives to drive transformative change. Reporting for Eyeafrica News, I am Yahya Jammeh.